Board of Education meeting to order. Please join me with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item number 2 is motion to excuse board members. All are present. Item number 3 is our open meetings law. We have that posted in the back of the room, and we will follow those protocols and procedures. Item number 4 is our consent agenda, and included in that are the regular minutes of January 22nd and the minutes from our workshop held on February 10th. We also have our financial statement and reports and our monthly bills. Are there any questions? Having none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Dr. Gould?
Yes.
Mr. Brightwright?
Yes.
Mr. Belanger?
Yes.
Mrs. Berglund? Yes. Mr. Langy?
Yes.
Mr. Matulka?
Yes.
Motion carried. Item number 5, correspondence and recognition. Well, we have a wrestling team.
Oh, Dad, I'm sorry. Yeah, well, thank you for reminding me. And we do have a wrestling team that we just did a send-off for at 5:30. We have 8 members of our wrestling team who have qualified for the state tournament, which I believe ties for the most we've ever had attend the state wrestling tournament. I think Sophie Schultz, as a Class C participant, is the first Class C girl that has made the
16 years.
in 16 years. So a lot of great accomplishments. And as far as we came home with the runner-up to the districts, which is the first time since 1975 that we have finished that high in district competition. So a lot of accolades to be given there.
And one other thing, our cheer team is going to state, and I saw them at our pep rally, and they were like off the charts.
Pretty awesome.
Very good. So kudos to Shay and that team. That was awesome.
We also have had Counselor Recognition Week, and we want to thank those individuals for their work continuously with students during very difficult times, to be commended for their efforts. And the speech team had a meet on Monday.
Their conference tournament was hosted. We hosted that on Monday, and our team finished second in the conference tournament. They did an excellent job.
So lots of kudos.
Yep.
Item number 6 is public forum. Members of the public will be permitted to speak at board meetings at which a public forum is on the agenda. Members of the public may also speak when invited to make a presentation or when called or recognized by the chair. The board is not required to allow members of the public to speak at each meeting. However, the board will not forbid public participation at all meetings. Members of the public will not be required to have their name be placed on the agenda prior to the meeting in order to speak about items on the agenda. Members of the public who desire to address the board will be required to identify themselves by name, their address, and any organization they are representing. The president or chair of the meeting shall have the authority to establish reasonable time limits for individual speakers and for the duration of the public forum sessions. Speakers will be permitted to address the board consistent with free speech rights. However, offensive language, defamatory remarks, and hostile conduct will not be tolerated. Further charges or complaints against a school employee shall not be made for the first time at a public board meeting without having followed the school's complaint procedure. I do have an individual that would like to speak at public forum, and so I call Melissa Ilian. Melissa?
Hi, everyone.
Welcome.
This is the first time I've met any of you. I'm rather new to the district, came right before the whole pandemic thing, about 2 months beforehand. I don't really have anything prepared. I have my emails, and that's about it. I'm assuming all of you have read all the communications that I've tried to have with you and the administration. As I stated in the emails, I don't want animosity between me and you or my son or anything like that. I'm literally just very, very, very concerned. And I feel like the concerns that have been addressed on countless occasions here in these board rooms and, you know, not just here, everywhere, they're not really they're being heard. I think all of you are really probably great people and probably have similar concerns to the concerns that I've addressed. But everyone's hands seem to be a bit tied. And that's a real problem. I just would like to ask you right now, if you're allowed to like respond to me. Is that not okay?
No, we do not.
Okay, well then I'll ask open-ended questions. I really was hoping to be able to get some response from you because I've really only heard from Lynn. I kind of want to know from the people who are making the decision to keep the policy intact, whether or not this policy would even be a part of Raymond Central right now if it were not for the direct health measure. And if that's the case, if that's literally like where the hands are tied, you have legal obligation. I received that from Lynn. I think it's pretty safe for me to assume that these measures are being implemented basically under threat of losing your accreditation and your funding. If I'm wrong, I would, obviously you can't tell me. But if that's the case, that again is very concerning. Equally as concerning as all the issues that I brought up with why I don't feel it's safe for us to continue this policy. It may seem silly for me to be addressing this right now. I do have hope that the direct health measures are going to be lifted. I know they just lifted them in Omaha, but their schools are still going to be masked. I'm pretty sure Lincoln will probably still have masks in their schools. And I do have faith you guys won't do that, which is great. But I don't have faith that if that direct health measure comes back in another couple weeks or, oops, now they decide that that's needed again, it's going to be reinstated because you're going to be under that same threat. I'd like to know what exactly as a district, as a, we're supposed to have some sort of sovereignty a little bit, as a district to make up our minds as what's best for, the students that go here, the families that go here. What exactly can we do to ensure that the rights and the parental, I have rights as a parent. We all have rights as individuals and they're being violated. I have reason. I have a lot of reasons that I've expressed to all of you as to why I think this should stop being enforced immediately. I have rescinded my consent. I don't give my consent for my son to come to school and be forced to wear a mask. I don't. For all the reasons I've listed, for things I've seen in my own son, for the reasons of coming to a new district and the things I experienced with him, making friends with masks on everybody's face. You know how hard that is? There are things we can't ignore just because we're being threatened to lose funding for our school. Period. And I don't think that any of you can probably look me straight in the eye and say that you disagree with a lot of what I said, that there are social harms being created all across the board. Any normal person that knows anything about child development, especially the younger children, thank God your elementaries do not have it, correct? I did never really receive an answer to that. Like the elementary schools don't have the mask mandate. I'm so thankful for that because that would be devastating. And children all over are experiencing that. Children in Lincoln have to go to their speech therapist in masks. Tell me how the hell that makes any sense. And yet we're following this. We're following these guidelines because we are being threatened to do so. Or you, I don't know, me, you, we're all in this together, my kid's here, you're helping my kid learn. And we are dealing with this together. I am going to say I'm very disappointed with the communication that I was receiving. If I can be honest about that, I think that there was a lot of ignoring of my very blatant concerns, my expectations as a parent. If you're going to be doing something to my child that deals with his health, I expect, as any parent would, if I go to the doctor and they say this is recommended, okay, well, I'd like the sheet, all the proof that says this is safe. I can't even get that. You can't give that to me. And yet my son will come to school and he'll be given the mask and he'll be sent to the office if he's not wearing it or whatever happens. Is that right? There is no consent being given by me as his parent. That's a violation. And I look you guys in the eye and I know you understand that. I know you understand where I'm coming from. I know you're not the only parent who's raised this concern. I am worried about the division it's causing. I'm worried about so many different things on so many different levels when it comes to what is happening with our individual rights, our individual sovereignty, our ability as schools to make decisions that are in the best interest of the people that you represent. The Lincoln Health Department doesn't know any of us. Maybe they know you, I don't know, but they don't know our families. They don't know our children. They don't know any of us. They're literally just blanket statementing that this is what we need to do. This is what's good for everybody. It's not. I know people personally who are suffering from these policies. I would like to, it's kind of difficult because I can't get any answers or any kind of discussion, but I think there needs to be an actual discussion on how we go about, how we move forward and not allow an entity like the Lancaster County Health Department to override what I want for my child or what maybe you all want to do for the school. I want to know what we're going to do to stop that, to gain our power back, to say, no, this is not how it works. It's not how it works. We live in freaking America. This is not how it works. I don't really care what kind of situation we are put in. Nobody else has the right to come in and step forth and say, you have to do this because I say so. If I'm standing here like, no, actually, that's going to harm me in XYZ manner, and you're forcing me to do that, that is against every principle that I believe in and hopefully you believe in. It's not okay. Coercion and force is not okay. What we're teaching our kids with something as simple as this masking policy is terrifying. I teach my kid to think for himself. Yeah, his teachers might know more than him in certain areas, but they don't know it all. Question it. Question what you're taught. Question what's in the books. Question what authority figures who think that they can tell you what to do. Question where they're coming from. Question their validity of things. And the school is going completely in the opposite direction and saying, you don't have the right to question that. You don't have the right to question that. If you do, well, tough. I don't care what conclusion you come to. It doesn't matter because this is what I say. This is what you're going to do. It's not okay, guys. It's just not. It's just not where we need to be in an educational environment that's teaching kids to be their own people, to be their own person. And here we have all our kids' faces covered. They can't even. Oh, it's so incredibly wrong. It's just really wrong. And I know in all of your guys, I as I stated in the email, I do not envy the position that you are in. I know you guys are operating under what you're able to and making decisions one day at a time. And I know that things have changed. And I'm not here to condemn you for the choices or the votes or whatever. But something has to be done. And I don't want the same response that I'm getting, which is this is what we're following. These are the guidance that we're following. We're not followers. We need to be teaching our kids to be leaders. We're not followers. We don't follow just because these are experts. The experts have been wrong over and over and over again for the past 2 years in devastating ways that should literally be crimes against humanity. The lockdowns, the school closures, as you stated, they were devastating. Absolutely devastating. And yet we follow these people's guidance, right? That's because they know it all. They're experts. They're not. They're people just like we are. And they think, and they may have an expertise. They may know things that we don't, but we are all able to think for ourselves. And I think a lot of people are coming to the same conclusion I am at this point, that this is no longer something we should be doing and enforcing. I will say that the loophole I see for you as your hands being tied, or, that's the gist I'm getting from the emails I'm getting, is this is just how it is. You are not obligated to enforce anything. You are not the police. You are not my child. You are not in front of my child to tell him what to do because the direct health measures over here are saying you're going to lose your funding. They're required. Let me just read that to you. It says in the thing that sorry, give me 1 second. What you copied and pasted to me was, pursuant to Nebraska, blah, 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 the Lincoln and Lancaster County Health Department may lawfully issue a binding, enforceable, direct health measure with Lancaster County. Any person found guilty of violating a lawfully issued direct health measure can face criminal sanctions. In addition, Raymond Central Schools, pursuant of obligated to comply with all local, state, and federal laws, which would include a lawfully issued directive health measure. So you're obligated to comply. What does that mean? Have you looked that up? Do you know what that means? What is comply with it? Does that mean you have to you have to post the signs? Like I said in my email, you have to post the signs. You have to let all the parents know the direct health measure is in effect here in Lancaster County. But the person who would be any person found guilty of violating a lawfully issued direct health measure can face criminal sanctions. Guess what? That would be my son. Or me, since I am his parent and his legal guardian. I would be liable, not you. You're not liable for kids who come to school and their parents and their families have chosen that this is not a safe thing. This is not something we should continue to do. You're not liable for that. I don't see how you could be held liable for that. Challenge that, please. Because just because a week from now it may be lifted, it doesn't mean it's not coming back. And you have to be able to stand up for the parents' right, the parental rights, the student rights, the rights of the people in this district to make their own choices when it comes to their health. Please. My son would be liable. Let him be liable. Me. Let me rephrase. I would be liable, not you.
Thank you. We'll move on to item number 7, which are reports. We have reports from our administration team. Are there any questions? Then we'll move on to our student board member report.
Good evening, school board members and guests. The winter sports season is slowly coming to an end. Last week, our wrestlers traveled to Madison to punch their ticket to the state tournament. This year, we're taking a record number of 8 guys, and of course Sophie, to the state tournament, which will take place this Thursday, Friday, along with Saturday for those who make it to the finals. A big congratulations to Sophia Schultz. She will be the first girl in many years to qualify for the boys' state wrestling tournament. Moving on to basketball, the girls' team recently traveled to Lincoln Lutheran to play their first round of sub-districts. Unfortunately, this was not the outcome the girls were hoping for, and their season has come to an end. The boys' basketball team has their last home game Friday against Schuyler, and sub-districts for them will take place next Monday, the 21st, at Milford. The cheer team recently competed at the Heartland Championship competition and placed first in both division, game day, and tumbling. They will be competing again on Friday for the state cheer competition in Grand Island. Their first performance starts at 8 a.m. Good luck, ladies. The Valentine's Day fundraiser put on by the speech and FBLA organizations went over well, with many students waiting to get their fellow classmates a nice surprise. The speech team recently held Capital Conference competition here at Raymond Central, and the Central players placed second as an overall team with a total of 4 overall champions. It was reported that the tournament went smoothly. Moving forward, the juniors have decided our theme for prom will be masquerade. Prom is taking place April 2nd. Moving on to student feedback, there hasn't been much going on with the parking situation. That's all.
Any questions? Thank you very much. 7.3 Superintendent's Report.
In the body of my report, I talked to you a little bit about, just summarized, we had 51 people in attendance at the patron committee meeting. So kudos to the board members for contacting people, and I felt that that was a very strong show for our first meeting. And I thought that the meeting went very well, and that we got some information out, and I have the questions that were garnered from that, and I'm ready to send those out, so I'll probably do that tomorrow. I'm trying to, I can blend some of them, haven't quite got them all blended, but quite a number of good questions relative to what more information do they want. But it's clear that they really want more information about costs and options and that type of thing. I talked a little bit about Dr. Golden. I attended the NASB Legislative Conference, and we are having our first ever preschool roundup this year. I don't think we've had one in the past. So we're excited to see how that works. It gives the teachers an opportunity to meet parents and kids before they see them face to face on the first, open house. So our enrollments are a little bit lower than we'd like for this time of year. So we're working on ways to market that more and see if we can get some more interest, or if I don't know if it's interest or they're getting registration confused with Roundup. In other words, people who don't want to go to Roundup, are they thinking they don't need to call and register? So we're trying to ferret that out. And then again, we continue to experience, as does the whole nation, shortages of goods and supplies, and most recently it's hit us in the food service department, and just really struggling to get some of the basic commodities that we can usually get. They're just not available. So Patty is doing an excellent job of making some changes and alterations, and as are all 3 of the kitchens, and trying to meet the kids' needs. So keep working on that. And the only other things I have to share are NASB monthly updates. The NERCS update I shared with you, and so there's a number of conferences coming up that board members may be interested in, and if you are, let me know, and I will get you registered. And I think that's about it.
Thank you. Any questions for Superintendent Johnson?
You discussed a little in your board brief, but the next steps for from our patron meeting, engaging or getting some
Architect, the next step, yeah. What we talked about at that time, which we thought was going to be true, is that people are going to need more information and data that we can't provide them, that it's going to take a different level of expertise to provide, and that's through an architect or an architect or facilities planner. And so that's later on in our agenda tonight to take some, to consider that further and to take some action. Yeah, is that what you mean, Bill?
Yeah.
Yep.
And we'll see those questions that you're formulating.
Yes, everybody that was on the committee, the questions that came from the committee members, I will send those out in an email to everybody, hopefully by tomorrow. I'll clean up and ready to go. Cheryl did the first leg of that, has them all typed up. Now we just have to, some of them are repetitive, so I just want to condense that and we'll get it out.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Johnson. 7.4 Facilities Report. Any updates there?
Other than the fact that, we have that unit over at Valparaiso that's on order, that heat pump, it's going to take a long time to get it. So hopefully we'll get that soon, be able to install it. And, I can't think off the top of my head of anything else really to report. Jared keeps us up and running. We've had a few leaks here and there, but nothing that we haven't been able to fix. And we just keep plugging along. We met today with the firm that helps us with our HVAC issues, and so one of the things on our list, facilities list, short-term list, is the unit that there's only one unit in this junior senior high school that is dated and past its life expectancy, and that is the unit from 1996 that sits above the senior wing. And so that is on our list to look at replacing, and we're going to meet briefly as a facilities committee after this meeting to discuss the timeframe for that.
Okay, thank you. Going on then to the board committee reports. The Committee on American Civics.
Yeah, we had a committee meeting tonight before this meeting, and just approved once again, we're in compliance. Thanks for compiling all the information, and thanks for keeping us in compliance.
Thank you. 7.52 transportation.
Nothing to report other than we do have a new bus driver. Thank you. Joey Stansberry is helping us out, so that's a huge asset. You can stand up and take applause.
That was all his idea, so I can't take credit.
Sub driver, not
He's a
route
sub
driver.
driver.
Okay, thank you. 7.5 Finance Committee, Mr. Blanchard.
Nothing at this time.
Facilities,
Nothing.
negotiations,
Nothing.
curriculum. We'll be addressing something in a bit. Policy, nothing new here. 7.6 is review of public forum. This is an opportunity for the board to discuss or talk about anything that was presented to us. Melissa did give us quite a bit of information this evening. Are there any comments or questions at this time?
I think you guys all know how I feel from previous meetings, so I think we know.
And we're actually, this is on the agenda
Yeah.
to talk about this month.
So I did put it on the agenda
Okay.
too, just to make sure.
Can I ask a question, or is that not allowed right now? Is this just for you guys to?
Right, it's our discussion time. Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on then to old business, and 8.1 is to discuss, consider, and take necessary action to address the safety protocols, including masking. As you are aware, we are following the directed health measure. We have been receiving the current updates from the Lincoln Lancaster County health folks with regard to the current statistics. The good news is that the number of people in the hospitals is going down, as well as the number of people contracting COVID with regard to the counts that are coming into public health. Director Lopez has said that she has extended the DHM through February 25th. And so I believe at that point in time, she will probably lift the mask mandate. I did hear that it's possible that it could be coming off sooner than that, but she will be the one that will make that decision. Other questions or comments?
Well, I guess once again, as we have every month, I think we need to take the masks off the kids. I think we've done, luckily we have it off the elementary kids, but I think we've done enough harm socially, emotionally, educationally to our kids that we just need to say enough's enough and take the masks off out here and make it a parental choice. And I would say I'd like to not follow, when we've talked about this before, I know, but not follow this if that's would come back on again. I think it's been 2 years. Parents know whether they want their kids to wear a mask or not. And I agree that we don't need to have somebody else telling us that's what we have to do. So I'd like to make a motion to, starting Monday, take the masks off as a requirement out here at the junior senior high and put it back up to the choice of the parents.
I'll second that.
Okay, there's been a motion made and a second. Is there further discussion?
guess to me, I mean, everywhere you go, you guys are going there too, you don't see people wearing them. And we're making the kids do it, so it seems like, well, we're taking the path of least resistance by piling it on the kids. That doesn't seem right to me.
I would only, I don't know if this is the right spot, but I just want to reiterate that Mrs. Elling, when she was on here, talked about a level of liability and where that rests. And I can only say to you, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know. And so maybe somebody knows more than me, but I just want you to know that I did call 2 legal firms that handle school law, and they don't agree with that statement. They do believe that the liability they don't know either, because you don't know until it's tried, right? But they believe that the way the law, that it is written, that the laws of Nebraska would indicate that that liability does rest on this board, not with this parent as suggested. So that, and again, I'm not a legal expert. I can only tell you what they shared with me.
And I'm sure that that's what they will say. And I also know that no businesses in Lincoln are turning you away if you walk in their door without a mask on, so.
I just wanted to, since this was open, I wanted to make that point of clarification. So that it shows that she heard that.
I certainly understand Mrs. Illion's concerns. However, I'm a believer that the directed health measure is there for a reason, and we are to follow that. And if and when, and I'm optimistic that it will happen soon, that it gets lifted, then we follow that. We had a motion earlier to say that we were going to follow the directed health measure. And, you know, I understand this is a long time that we're dealing with this. However, you know, I believe that the legality can come back at us, and if there's a law or a directed health measure that's in place, I'm a rule follower, and I don't think that I'm being coerced to follow that. I think that we follow the rules, and as a school district, I think that it's important that we model what our expectations are.
I think our job is what's best for educating these kids, and I think masks are not. So that's why I've made the motion that I did.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Brightwright.
No,
Mr. Blanchard.
No.
Mrs. Berkman.
Yes.
Mr. Laney.
Yes.
Mr. Matoka.
Yes.
Dr. Gould.
No. Motion failed. Item 8.2, discuss, consider, and take necessary action to amend the 21-22 district calendar.
I'm back in front of you again. This is the second time. Asking if you would consider amending the school calendar. You know, the education commissioner has, Mr. Bloomstead, Dr. Bloomstead, has provided us the leniency to do so, and he continues to emphasize in his weekly seminars with administrators that we be cognizant of the stress and strain on our teachers and our staff in general, but particularly our teachers, for various reasons. This year has proven to be certainly as stressful as last year was, and so as we meet with our teachers and we hear some of those very same concerns from them, we are asking of you to consider giving us to take a student day and convert that into a teacher work day, primarily teacher work day, a little bit of PD in that day. We plan for about at the most an hour. The rest would be work time and time for them to kind of get some of their needs met in that way. And we always build mental health into that. And we're recommending to you for consideration Friday, March 11th as that mental health day. You might remember Lincoln Book Schools took three days here. This will be our second. say that right?
Third.
It'd be our third, because we did 2 days right before Easter, or Thanksgiving, thank you. For heaven's sake, I was really confused.
So these days off, and we're not extending that to the calendar,
We are not
Right,
extending it,
okay,
that is
good.
not what our
or not,
recommendation is.
something nice. Just as long as these days are always on Fridays and Mondays, I'm all right with it.
Okay. Well, I know it's, I think it gives parents, I'm also cognizant of parents having, enough sufficient time to make plans, especially for their littles, and I think it gives them adequate time to do that. I know it still is an inconvenience. The last time we did this, I do want to say to you, I did receive one email from a parent who it's difficult because now they have to find childcare when they normally would. So we do understand that it's not the easiest thing for everybody.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the Friday, March 11th, 2022 as a development, training, and work time day. I don't know how you want to word it, but
Is there a second?
professional development day.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Blanchard,
Yes.
Mrs. Berglund,
Yes.
Mr. Langy.
Yeah.
Mr. Matulka,
Yes.
Dr. Gould,
Yes.
Mr. Brightcrus.
Yes.
Item, we're moving into new business. 9.1, discuss, consider, and take necessary action to approve staff appointments. And listed is Mr. Stansberry as a substitute bus driver, as classified staff, and then certified staff, teachers coming for the 22-23 school year. Claire Tren-Haley as a speech language pathologist, Kelly Taverdi as a 5th grade teacher at Ceresco, as well as the head volleyball coach, Elijah Hackbart as an industrial tech, Skills USA and head cross-country coach, Nathan Silva as an elementary teacher, and Jacob
Starzik, I think.
Thank you. As a secondary science teacher.
Yeah, and I would say to you, we moved to changing this agenda item as just an open-ended agenda item, because a couple of these, if you looked at your packet over the weekend, have been added since then. It has been a hectic whirlwind of interviews and staffing, so kudos to the principals who are really in the thick of that. So we've got some excellent hires here, and Claire is a brand new speech pathologist. She's had some exciting training. We're glad to have her on staff. Kelly has 2 years of teaching experience, so she'll be entering with us on her 3rd year. Elijah is a new graduate out of UNL. Nathan Sliva has had 2 years of elementary teaching experience at Columbus Public Schools. Nathan will do some coaching for us. We just haven't identified which coaching role he'll be in, but he is excited to do some coaching here at Raymond Central. And Jacob is a 10-year experienced teacher. He's currently teaching middle school in Colorado. His master's degree is in STEM and chemistry education. So he's really excited to be given the opportunity to teach chemistry and physics, and so and excited to be moving closer to their parents as they start a family. So really excited to have him on there and joining our team. And he's literally had a world's worth of experience and done some work in Africa and other places. So brings a breadth of knowledge to us.
Thank you for updates and more information. Is there a motion to approve the appointments?
I'll make it.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Berglund,
Yes.
Mr. Langy.
Yes.
Mr. Matulka,
Yes.
Dr. Gould,
Yes.
Mr. Brightcrus.
Yes.
Mr. Blanchard.
Yes.
9.2 is to discuss, consider, and take action to approve resignations from staff. And the resignations are listed. Rachel Beck as our speech pathologist, Ms. Sager as our elementary principal, Brian Grelier as our Assistant Principal Activities Director, Christine Genrich as our 5th grade teacher at Ceresco, Taryn Benish as the Assistant Softball Coach, Henry as our High School Science Teacher and Assistant Boys Basketball Coach, Laura Hill is our Secondary Spanish Teacher, and Diane Alstrand, our 3rd grade teacher at Ceresco. Is there a motion?
I'll make it.
A second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Mr. Matulka?
Yes.
Dr. Gould?
Yes.
Mr. Brightcrus?
Yes.
Mr. Blanchard?
Yes.
Mrs. Berkeley?
Yes.
9.3 is to discuss, consider, and take necessary action to approve the 22-23 school calendar. There was a committee that was developed to look at that calendar and make recommendations. Mrs. Johnson, any further information?
No, not really. It's explained there, and we've met probably 3 times, and this is the calendar we came up with. The key change to this calendar is we're moving the start date back a week as compared to last year for students and for staff. And so then obviously the consequences is it moves it back in May. But this year, right now, we're slated with 1 snow day out of the 3 that are scheduled. And we are slated to be done on a Monday. That's by just Monday, May 16th. So that's a pretty early release for school. So we'll see how this goes, and hopefully parents will like it.
Motion to approve the calendar.
I'll make a motion to approve the calendar.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Matulka?
Yes.
Dr. Gould?
Yes.
Mr. Brightcrus?
Yes.
Mr. Blanchard?
Yes.
Mrs. Berkeley?
Yes.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
9.4 is to discuss, consider, and take necessary action to approve the junior, senior high school course offerings. And Mrs. Johnson, if you want to explain a little bit further.
Yeah, I will. And I talked to the curriculum committee. We didn't actually meet, we just kind of visited and made sure that the curriculum committee was okay with what was being presented here. But what we have, first off, I presented to you, I just wanted to make sure that the board understood where we would meet the new, there's some new legislation about personal finance requirements for senior graduation. We were really already meeting those with very little changes. We just kind of changed the name of the course that kids are already required to take with Mrs. Parks, and we meet the needs of the statute. So I just wanted to assure you that that's taken place. But the 2 new courses that are on the slate to be approved tonight, cybersecurity. This is a survey course that talks about the field of cybersecurity, a topic area that is of interest to our kids and kids in general in our current environment of the world. And then IT fundamentals is the second course that is being proposed. And it develops the students' abilities to analyze, evaluate, and strategize and reflect upon technologies such as computer hardware, computer software, etc. Both of these recommended courses are in the business and tech department. There's a little bit of that. And down below, we just talked to you a little bit about the introduction of these classes and changing the names of some other classes, not content, but names, creates new pathways for us in our career fields and our career strands. And so that's a positive for kids, and especially if they're going on to a 2-year program. And it also is a positive for us because it garners us more Perkins money, more federal money through the Perkins grant. So whenever we can add to our career strands with our coursework, it's a positive thing.
My only question, I guess, dealt with the fact that it's not going to require an additional teacher.
No, there's no staffing now as a result of this. Now, one thing we're flirting with, not necessarily as a result of these 2 new classes, but we were flirting with it before the new classes, was Keely Schaefer, is predominantly a technology director, and she does teach some classes now. We kind of flirted with maybe adding 1 additional class to her roster and still being a technology teacher. It would not impact any new staffing. No. And we still haven't decided to do that, and these 2 new classes wouldn't create that need per se. We're looking at it for other reasons.
Okay, is there a motion?
I'll make it.
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Dr. Gould,
Yes.
Mr. Brightcrus?
Yes.
Mr. Blanchard,
Yes.
Mrs. Berglund,
Yes.
Mr. Langy,
Yes.
Mr. Matulka.
Yes.
9.5 is to discuss, consider, and take necessary action to approve the superintendent's contract for the 22-23 school year. The board has followed all the legal requirements in posting the superintendent's contract to the website, as well as the schedule indicating the cost of that contract. And it's been posted up there for quite a bit of time and meeting the guidelines as necessary. Is there a motion to approve Mrs. Johnson's contract?
I'll make it.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Brightcrus?
Yes.
Mr. Blanchard?
Yes.
Mrs. Berglund?
Yes.
Mr. Langy?
Yes.
Mr. Matulka?
Yep.
Dr. Gould?
Yes. Motion carried. Like it or not. You're here and we're glad.
I like it.
Good, thank you. 9.6, discuss, consider, and take necessary action with regard to authorizing issuance of a request for letters of interest for architecture services.
Okay, so as I alluded to earlier when we were talking about the patrons committee meeting, one of the, I think going into that meeting, I think the board felt like, boy, we need some more information before we can make good decisions about what we're doing with our facilities and our planning. And because although the feasibility study has some information, it doesn't have some more detailed information about, particularly about cost, because you need somebody with that level of expertise, facility expertise to get that. So what an architectural services can do for you is that they can do facility audits and get more specific details and options developed for you. And I think what we saw in some of the questions that our patrons had was the need for just that. What are some of the other options and what are the exact costs of that? Noting that maybe some of the costs in the feasibility study didn't seem maybe accurate or up to date or both. So I worked with our lawyer and Derek Aldridge has expertise in facilities, in facility law. He's an engineer as well as a lawyer, and he's with the firm that we work with. And he really helped develop the guidelines that you're seeing here about a reasonable way to go about this. What should your steps look like and what are the possibilities? So one of the suggestion that I have in front of you is that that we would send out a request for letters, and Derek would, Mr. Aldridge would help me with that. And I kind of attached an example of that for you. And it details, what is the information we want from an architect service company, because truly our situation is unique and different than we're unique to ourselves. So we want someone who knows what we have, what the task is here, and who can help develop those options. And also I would suggest help us talk to our patrons when we go back into these patron committee meetings to be on hand to explain what they found. And so I think that's what we're looking for. And so our desire would be to send out letters of request to area firms, and they send back information to us if they're interested in being considered. And then we would need to narrow that down somehow. I would suggest to you maybe through committee, otherwise we have to have a lot of special board meetings. That might be more effective and efficient through committee work. And then the committees would narrow that down, or facilities committee or whoever, I would assume we go with facilities committee, narrow that down, bring back 2-3 firms to actually be interviewed and chosen. And you could do that one of two ways too. You could have the board as a whole interview those firms. Some people do it that way. It would have to be done in public, so any discussion you have would be public comment. Or some schools will have committee do that as well, and have the committee actually choose the architecture service and then present it to the board as their recommendation. So.
Did you get a feel through the questions? And I think you said you provide those to us, but, from the patron meeting, generally what people were asking about or were asking.
There was a myriad of questions, from us, but there was definitely, numerous people who wanted more information on cost. What would it cost to redo the 2 elementaries? What, is the cost of one site, is that accurate? And what are some of them, what are the facility needs? So that was asked multiple times. Would you say brought it down into one question? Yeah, that was a pretty common question. Is that what you mean?
Yep, it is.
Yeah, among a myriad of other things.
Yep,
You know.
sure. That's good.
I had a question in the attachment that you gave us, the letter of request.
Yep.
It talks about financing. And it said that financing had not been decided upon for future projects, but we were looking at a lease purchase option. When did we start looking at a lease purchase option?
Kathy, point that out to me.
If you go to the attachment,
Is that,
and then you go down,
so not on the letter, it must be in the
it's in the other,
Okay,
it's, the very last thing is finance and budget,
yep.
number 5.
Oh, wow. That's not right. I'm glad you saw that. That would not be right.
I'm like, we've never talked about
No.
lease purchase options, so I'm just
No.
like, where did it come from?
No, that should not be there. I would think what needs to be there is not finalized potential financing for any future project, period. The school district has not determined any budget for a project. I'm sure this is a boilerplate form, and we didn't screen it well enough. Derek and I went through this a couple of times, but we did not catch that. That's an error. Actually, I don't think it was in the first time we went through it, so I don't know.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure it
Thank
didn't
you.
stay in there.
No, it doesn't need to stay in there. I agree. Did you have any other questions on that? A lot of it gets kind of complicated, like. And then Derek would work with, if you chose to go this route that I suggested, he would work with committees to help, with the committee too, and I to help look at the critical details of the submissions so that we have something to base a decision on.
How many are you anticipating sending out?
I asked Derek, Mr. Aldridge, that I think he said area ones, maybe 12 to 16. I think he was thinking we want to saturate the world, or even the state, but we want to try to get people who've done projects similar in nature, and I think the key piece is really what companies have the capacity to do what we are asking them to do at this time. Because if they don't have the capacity to give to that at this time, then they maybe aren't a strong contender. You know what I mean? If it's gonna take months for them to mobilize.
And that's another key component, right?
Yeah,
Timing.
I think it is.
You need a motion?
Any other questions?
And he actually drafted a motion, a draft motion. Can you guys see that in your work?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that he thought captured our.
Do we need to discuss now whether we need to have that final interview with the whole board or whether?
I think we should discuss that somewhere in here, either before or after the motion, irrelevant, but we do need to discuss that, Kathy.
What is the board thinking? I like the option of the facility committee doing the work, but the final interview in front of
the whole board. That would be what I would, that way the whole board is part of that final interview process.
So the facility committee would narrow it down.
Would narrow it down.
Right.
The board is all over.
Then you would probably do those interviews as part of your regular board meeting in March. That's kind of what we're aiming for here.
That's fine.
right?
Yeah,
Yes.
sounds good to me.
Because I was assuming either the board would do this at their March meeting, just blend it together, or if you wanted the committee to do it, they do it in a time frame where the board could approve it at their March meeting. And he said that's a very doable time frame.
I think if, I'm hearing the board's response that they would prefer to have the entire board hear those proposals and then make a decision.
Perfect,
And then prior to that, it's the facility committee that would.
perfect, just as we outlined.
Yeah,
Okay,
yes.
perfect.
Okay. Is there a motion then? Mr. Blanchard?
I'll make it.
Second.
A motion as stated that the Board of Education of the school district should and does hereby authorize issuance of a request for letters of interest to qualified architectural firms for the purpose of pre-financing needs, analysis, and possible post-financing design, cost estimating, and construction, administration of potential new school facilities, and further authorize, approve, and direct the superintendent of schools or designee of the superintendent to develop and issue said request for letters of interest in the form as presented at this meeting or with such changes as deemed necessary and in the best interest of the school district and approved by the superintendent of schools. Is there a second?
No second.
Bill.
I'll second.
I think Bill seconded.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Blanchard.
Yes.
Mrs. Berkland.
No.
Mr. Langy.
Yes.
Mr. Patoka.
Yes.
Dr. Gould.
Yes,
Mr. Broderick.
Yes,
motion carried. Okay, 9.7, discuss, consider and take necessary action to approve policy 5006 and resolution and appendix 1 to policy 5006, which establishes option capacity and enrollment. And again, Mrs. Johnson, if you can clarify the needs here.
Every year, actually, school districts in the state of Nebraska are required to review their capacity for option enrollment. So every year, we take a look at 5006 Appendix 1. This year, I'm asking you also to look at the policy itself, 5006, and I'm asking you to consider adding a statement. Right now, we don't have any, in practice, we have some restrictions, but we haven't captured it in writing very well, and I feel a lot better if we capture this in writing. At the 9 through 12 level, this board has decided to waive the deadline for option enrollment. It's really March 1 by law, and you can either waive it or not. And so our policy kind of waives it, but we don't really for 9 through 12 because of credits and how messy that gets. Picking up kids in the middle of the semester, we haven't really been doing it. We do it at semester, but I would like it to be clearly written in here. So I'm asking you to add that sentence in red. Okay, and then on the capacity, on the appendix itself, I just redesigned it a little bit because of what makes sense, I think, when we function. In the past, we've had capacities by grade level, but oftentimes you may be way over capacity in one building and not the other. So I just kind of put it as a building capacity, or excuse me, a section or building capacity. So if you're already at 24 in the third grade at Valparaiso and someone wants to option into Valparaiso, that would be closed, but there might be an opening at Ceresco, but they would have to, use that one or not being able to option at that time.
These numbers are the same as we've had
Yes,
before, right?
only cut in half, Kathy. Now, Kathy, not all of them are the same. A couple of the special ed numbers, we also changed the way this special ed was
You
represented.
broke it down more.
Yeah, we broke it down more, and we did change some of those numbers, Kathy. There was a number of 55 in special ed, and frankly, that's that's a huge caseload for a person. So we, with the help of Amanda, we reevaluated that, and we did change some of the capacities for special ed.
Okay.
In level 1 and 2, multi-category. Those tend to be, those can be, districts want to be careful about that because it can be,
What's our risk of turning people away, or
pardon me?
what's our risk of turning anybody away?
Well, because I changed the numbers in special education, we could be turning special ed students.
And we've done that in the past, yeah.
Well, I know, but I don't. The past doesn't mean that the future should stay the same. I'm always concerned if we're turning away students.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that for boards of education, this is just my opinion, Matt, we have to carefully balance turning away students and being able to serve students with our current staff. And so these capacity numbers are designed with this in mind. We aren't desiring to add staff to serve them. So these capacity numbers are designed thinking with the staff we currently have and the facilities we have, these are the numbers we can serve. Now, you could open these wide open if you want to add staff. Does that make sense? But I think these push us to the brink with our current staffing. You go much higher, you're gonna have some issues. So, and I think maybe what you asked is how many do we turn away? I don't know. Right now, this year, I haven't turned any away that I can think of other than ones that weren't at semester time at the high school.
And how much trouble is that? Because that's, I mean, a little bit of the parents and the students' responsibility if they have to take summer school or if they have to do something to catch up.
It's trouble for staff, frankly, because it might seem like it'd be a student's responsibility, but it really becomes a teacher's responsibility to get those kids caught up or segued into the middle of the semester of a course that they don't sequence the same as somebody else, some other school. It's a big burden. And most of the parents I've talked to, and granted I've only been here 1 year, if they're serious enough about coming here, they come at semester.
Is there a motion then to approve policy 5006 and the appendix?
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Berglund?
Yes.
Mr. Langy?
Yes.
Mr. Matulka?
Yes.
Dr. Gould?
Yes.
Mr. Brightwright?
Yes.
Mr. Blanchard?
Yes.
Item 9.8, discuss, consider, and take necessary action to approve a summer mowing bid from 5T Lawn Care for both Soresco and Val. That's listed.
Yep, and Jared's recommending this to the board, the same company that provided services for us last year at the same cost, which is
That's what
frankly unheard of.
the
So,
last rate.
yeah, it's the same cost. So he was very pleased with what we had and certainly think the cost is very reasonable.
But we didn't get any other bids.
And no, we did not.
We gotta be careful on that sometimes because we've faced backlash in the past on that stuff.
Well, I'll mention that.
Not necessarily on mowing, but snow removal and stuff, we got pretty beat up on a few things.
And that one we did open up and had a hard time. We had to go
No,
to
I
all the
don't,
bid.
no, we just gotta be careful if we do that.
We'll do. Gotcha.
So we didn't open it up, we just are taking the
We
person
are,
who did last
correct.
year.
I'm not against it at all, we're just saying.
Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make it.
I'll second.
Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Langy?
Yes.
Mr. Matulka?
No.
Dr. Gould?
Yes.
Mr. Brightwright?
Yes.
Mr. Blanchard?
Yes.
Mrs. Berglund?
Yes.
Motion carried. Item 10, approval of the next regular board meeting, which is scheduled for March 16th, 2022. A motion to approve.
I'll make it.
Second.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Matulka?
Yes.
Dr. Gould?
Yes.
Mr. Brightwright?
Yes.
Mr. Blanchard?
Yes.
Mrs. Berglund?
Yes.
Mr. Langy?
Yes.
Motion carried. Item number 11 is a motion to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you. And we were gonna meet just a minute now.
We're here, or?
Yeah, right. Or, are you guys all headed my way?
I am.
That's just,
We go to your
yeah,
office.
yep, sounds good.